Back up a little bit and tell you how that came about. I was born to a 17-year-old unwed mother, and a few months after that, when I was about 4 years old, my parents decided to get married. And so they got married, and it was terrible from the beginning. They had one child after another, so I have 5 brothers and sisters, and there's only 7 years between me and my youngest brother. So that tells you how it was. It was really, there were diapers everywhere. And back then, you didn't have disposable. You had the really stinky kind, so. But anyway, and by the way, y'all all say hey to Bee. Bee has known me since I was 10 years old when I came to this very children's home. And she will tell you stories, but do not believe anything she says. I'm just telling you she'll lie to you, okay? So, but anyway, my parents were alcoholics. They were very abusive to each other and to us. I can remember my mother whipping us on the back of the leg with a coat hanger that was stretched out. That was what she used, and she would switch us on the back of the legs. Now, I know a lot of people have been whipped with switches, but you ought to try a coat hanger sometimes. It leaves little welts. They got in fights all the time. They drank all the time. My father was a disabled veteran, so they got paid once a month. And they would take their money and they would go to the commissary on campus and they would buy their liquor. They did buy food. We got to eat for a few weeks. They would buy food and we had food, but they also bought all their liquor for the month. And they would drink and get drunk, and then once again the fighting would start and we would be caught in the middle of it, the 6 of us. I'm the oldest of 6, so you can imagine. So my father died when I was 10, and that left my mother alone with 6 children from 10 under. And she was, at that time, she was only 27 years old. So if you can imagine being 27 with 6 kids, no husband, and being an alcoholic, and being in an abusive relationship your whole marriage. So my mother went a little crazy, I should say a lot crazy. She decided that she really didn't want to be home anymore. So she started leaving us all the time. And we lived in a little town, Crawfordville, Florida. It's just like 30 minutes outside of Tallahassee. And we lived in a little big country town. And back then people kind of just turned their eyes. They didn't pay attention to what was going on. So I grew up in a little country town in Crawfordville, the mother of 5 brothers and sisters. And I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to do anything, but my brothers would kid and say I cooked China berry peas, because I would cook peas and they'd be so hard that you could throw them up against the wall and they'd bounce off, you know. So, and we had oatmeal a lot because that was one staple that we had, but we didn't have sugar, so we used oatmeal with a lot of butter because that was another staple that we had. But my mother decided that she was going to go to juke joints at night. I don't know if you know what a juke joint is, but a juke joint is like a bar, but it's in the woods and it's in the country, and you know, let's just say the most unsavory characters hang out at juke joints. So she would take us sometimes in the car, and we would be in the car, and some of the patrons would decide to come out and visit us in the car. Now these kids don't know what I'm talking about, but some of you might know what that means. When you have a man that comes to your car and you're there by yourself or with your brothers and sisters, you know that's not a good thing, okay? So it was a bad situation. But, you know, that was my life. That was my life. We went to sometimes she would bring them home with her, and that was worse. She would bring the men home with her, and of course, you know, they would make their ways out of her room into ours. And so you can imagine what my life was like. You know, I don't know anything about your lives. I don't know what you've been through, but I'm just telling you what happened to me. So after about 6 or 7 months of that, my grandmother decided that she needed to intervene. And she didn't know, or maybe she knew, but she kind of turned a blind eye, but she finally decided to intervene. So she came and got us. took us to her house. Well, she couldn't keep 6 kids under the age of 10. So she said, you know, what am I going to do? I can't do this. So she found out about Florida Baptist Children's Home. And so she called, and they decided that they would take 4 of us. Now, if you have a family and there's 6 of you and they're only going to take 4, and you're the oldest and you're like the mother, you can imagine what that was like. I felt like that they were taking 2 of my children away. And so it was really devastating to me. But I can remember the first day at the Children's Home. Like I said, we were in building 3 and it was 2-story. We'd never been in a 2-story building in our lives. So when they brought us in and they drove up to the building, we were like, we're going to be living here? I mean, we were really excited. 2-story building. We walked in and they had shiny hardwood floors, and that was like, oh my gosh, you know. And they asked us if we were hungry, and we have always been hungry. I mean, we've been hungry since I can remember. We had always been hungry. Believe it or not, I was very, 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 very skinny back then, okay? And but anyway, they offered us, my house mother, we came about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and my house mother said, would y'all like something to eat? And my brothers and I, we were all going, yes, we want something to eat. And so they brought us hot dogs and chocolate milk. Now that might not sound like a big deal, but we had never had chocolate milk. So we were really, really excited about the chocolate milk. So I'll never forget, first meal, hot dogs and chocolate milk. And we would take, I don't know, I'm sure it's not like this now, but back then we would take our socks, take our shoes off and have our socks. We'd run up down the halls and slide because the floors were so slick and bounce into the doors, you know. And I remember we'd never been in a 2-story building, so that was fun. But anyway, so I grew up here. I did not know about Christ, did not want to know about Christ. As far as I was concerned, that was something that good people talked about. That was not something I had ever seen, I had ever witnessed. I did not want to be, I didn't want to have anything to do with them. I mean, you know, God had abandoned me. He had left me where I was. He did not care what happened to me. He had allowed that to happen, and I just didn't have no use for it. And, you know, I went to church, and there were these nice church people, and, you know, I grinned, and I'm good, you know, I'm going to be good. And I realized as I went to church that there was a Father that would love me when everyone else had failed me. My mother had failed me, my father had failed me, my grandmother had failed me. Everyone in this life had failed me. But there was a Father that would never fail me. Hallelujah. He would never fail me. And I accepted Christ, and for the first time in my life, I did not feel alone. Now, I'm going to talk to y'all specifically. When I was growing up, I was told that I was going to be just like my parents. I was told that, you know, it runs in the genes, it's hereditary, you know, you're going to be an alcoholic, you're going to be an abuser of children, you know, it's going to be like that. I'm telling you, it does not have to be like that. It does not have to be like that. I have 2 children, they have never, ever, ever known abuse. Never. I have, and I will say, I went overboard a little bit. They never had a babysitter because I didn't trust anybody, you know, but they never had abuse. They've never been in an alcoholic situation except with some of my family, you know, but they've never seen it in their house. They've accepted Christ. They're good kids. They have, you know, they've got strong faith, and I thank God every day for that. I thank God every day because without Him, I would be poor white trash on the side of the road with probably 10 kids and not knowing anything about where they're at. That's where I would have been. I would have been an alcoholic. I would have been an abuser. I would have done everything that my parents had done without that. So I'm telling you, that does not have to be your legacy. That does not have to be your legacy. You make the choice. You make the choice. God gives you that opportunity to make the choice. You accept Christ. You let Him lead your life. You don't go by what anybody else says. You don't do what anybody else says or tells you to do. You do what God tells you to do, and your life is going to be different. You will leave a different legacy behind. And that is the most important thing, is to stop the cycles of abuse. To stop it. To stop it. And to let God in and let Him just vibrate through your body and know that He is all. He is everything. One of my favorite verses, I have a lot of them, but one of my very favorite verses, and everybody wonders why, is Deuteronomy 33:12. And you're thinking, Deuteronomy? What's in Deuteronomy, you know? But it's this little verse that's hidden in Deuteronomy, and it says, let the beloved of the Lord, oh, wait a minute, now I've lost my mind, but let the beloved of the Lord rest secure in Him, for He shields him all day long, and the one the Lord loves rests between His shoulders. God wants you to rest between His shoulders. He wants you to go to Him and to love Him and to know that He is there. And I can remember one time I was so angry about some things that were going on, and I was writing in a journal. I had started keeping a journal. And I was like, and God, while I'm talking to you, why did you let this happen? And why did you let that? And you know how women are. We bring up everything that's happened in our whole lives. Well, I did. Okay, I was like, and while we're at it, why did you allow this to happen? And why did my parents die? And why did this happen? And why did that happen? And why did they beat me up? And why did I have to go through this? And I distinctly heard a voice. And I've never heard, I mean, it wasn't like, you know, a vision, an angel came down and said, Catherine, you know, it wasn't anything like that. But I was in the quiet, and after I had spent all my time, why, God said, Kathy, I was there. I was there in the car. I was there in the juke joint. I was there in the house, and I am there now. I have never, ever left your side. And I am telling you, He will never, ever leave your side. And I am the living proof of that. I'm 60 years old. I have 2 wonderful children, no grandchildren, I'm still hoping. And I've been married 40 years to the same man who has never once lifted a finger to hurt me. And it can be the same thing for you if you will just let God know and let God lead. And that's all I have to say.